Let's take a look at estimation software in construction and see what companies are doing to make sure that their estimates have the freshest pricing information. They can easily take the estimate, turn it into a quote, collect signature, and get paid. So we're going to dive right in and take a look at this estimation software that we've been building using a couple different tools. So you see that this is pulling from our price book, and our price book information that we have is stored inside of Airtable. This is a work management or no-code kind of tool. It's not specifically designed for construction, but we're using it because it's a really powerful, really configurable kind of database. And so here we've got information like our items or materials, we've got vendor bids, we've got our customer information, and so we can easily store it and structure it and make it easily accessible. So here I'm taking a look at our items that we're actually going to pull into that estimation tool. And what's nice is that we've got all of these different tools at the top. Maybe I see this and I want to group all of my different items, and let's group this by the type. And so now I can have all of my materials, my labor, equipment, any assemblies that we have. This is just demo data here, but you can see it's really easy to be able to manipulate and see this information. And here we can have things like a default unit cost so that we know what each of these materials is going to cost. We could put in things like default wastage if we want to do that either at the specific item level or at a category. But you might be wondering to yourself, well, how do we know what those default costs are going to be? If you already have a price book, we could easily import this as a CSV file. But one of the things that's really important is we don't want our estimates to live in isolation of our relationships with our vendors and suppliers. So here you can see we have another tab for vendor bids, meaning that we have materials that we need on a project and we need to bid them out from a procurement standpoint. So if you've got relationships with your suppliers, we can easily take the materials that we need and go collect that information. We're going to get a little bit more in depth in another video, and we can list which are our default bids. So we might have some estimations that we're using internally, or we could turn around and get the actual bids from our suppliers. Because we're able to capture all of that pricing information and make sure it's up to date with our suppliers, that means our estimation tool is going to be able to pull from that really fresh information rather than stale data that you have sitting somewhere in an Excel spreadsheet. Now, you'll notice that this estimation software isn't really cluttered. We don't have a million different fields about our customer. We just see that we've got our customer, this Fargo Office Builders here. And that's because back in Airtable, again, this is a database of all of our customers and all of our information. That means we can store all of our information about them. And then on our estimate, all we have to do is pick that customer, pick that prospect, so we can estimate this out. We don't have to constantly be re-entering information time and time again. Instead, it's just stored inside of this database. Now, when it comes to adding new items to our estimate, we could, of course, just manually add new lines, select from our items, and be able to enter that manually. And that works okay, but it might not be the most efficient way for your business. So some other options we could do is we could import a CSV file. Maybe you have separate takeoff software. We can extract that information as a CSV and pull that in so we can automatically generate our estimate. Now, with some takeoff software, we can actually build an integration where it automatically moves over. You don't even have to import it with a click of a button. Instead, that information could be automatically processed ahead of time, where the takeoff software is talking to our estimate software in the background. And then another option that we have is to be able to add an assembly. And so if you've got combinations of material and labor that you want to be able to add in kind of as a template, we can do that through assemblies. We're going to cover that topic a little bit more in depth in a different video. Now, when it comes to making updates to the line items that we have on our estimates, I found that a lot of estimation software out there is pretty slow. So I just want to show you here what we're able to do is if you take a look and notice like the subtotal and the total down at the bottom, as we're actually entering in the quantities, notice how this changes in real time. And so we get that up-to-date information automatically so we can see how things affect it, especially if we're doing things like including labor costs. We try to keep a simplified user experience by putting the important fields like quantity and unit costs and the total here, but we could also expand this up if we want to have more in-depth access. So for example, if we want to put in different estimate amounts for wastage or for markup. So maybe this markup by default is at 15%, but I want to change this to 20%. And so you can see how that's going to affect that line item then. Once we've added all of our different items and markup and wastage, then we're ready to send this to our client. Hey, I'm Dan Lehman from Crewmatic.com, and we help construction companies build software that's tailored to their business. We oftentimes see construction companies using huge and expensive software that they don't even get the full value out of, while other companies try to pair together lots of different software vendors, and then the software doesn't even talk to each other. So what we do is build construction software based on your specific needs that we layer on top of work management and no-code tools so we can easily deploy it. Let's go ahead and click this Send Quote button. This is going to advance it to the next stage where we actually send it. We've got a couple different options. We could have it automatically send to an email address in the background. What you can see here is this actually opened up a form with the PDF version of the quote for our customer. And then we've got this nice form around it, which is going to do things like allow us to be able to capture that signature. Now, this right here is occurring within the software application itself. And so you could easily click a button and take this link and have it automatically sent to your customer. And so they could sign it via email. You could have an iPad and you could capture signature information here. So however you want to do it, however it's easy to distribute that quote and collect signature is really up to you here. So here we'd be able to add a signature, have them scribble out their John Hancock, and then we could go on to the next part. What we're doing here is we've got this connected with Stripe, and Stripe is a payment processor so that we can collect maybe a deposit on the project itself so that you can get started on the job, collect that payment up front. Now, while this particular example is using Stripe for payments, most of our customers are actually using QuickBooks. So we could collect payment via QuickBooks instead, or other construction finance software such as Foundation. Once it's signed and paid, you're good to go, but you could do other things as well, such as if you want to put this back into draft status, you need to make some modifications. And we can have different versions to that quote as well if you need to make those changes. At the end of the day, you can create estimates using Excel or using some janky software you have on your Windows machine since the early 2000s. But if you're really looking to get a handle on efficiency in your business, you might want to consider taking a look at how certain software can be tailored to the needs of your specific workflow. If you're interested in that, don't hesitate to reach out to our website at crewmatic.com, where we're offering free 30-minute consultations.